fighter.
Slightly inspired. Fight.
About 2 years ago, I reviewed a neat little flash cartridge known as EverDrive N8 for the Nintendo Famicom, or the NES. If you're not familiar with the EverDrive series, it's a cartridge that basically allows you to run ROM files through the SD card of your own choice, and you can allow them to play on the actual hardware. And with the excellent attention to detail of FPGA-based hardware for the EverDrive N8, I was giving a lot of praise to the EverDrive hardware itself, especially for the ones who were solidly looking for playing all the retro games but don't really want to spend or invest the space for the retro game collection in general. Just the console and one cartridge to play all of the library itself. However, with all the praise I've given for that video, I still thought that the old EverDrive could have done a lot better. With the OS being updated constantly though, I thought it couldn't be better than this. At least that's what I thought until in 2019, Kirkzz finally announced the new version of EverDrive N8, which is now a Pro Edition. Now, before I move on further with this main product review itself, I must claim very strongly that I'm not endorsing a piracy whatsoever. However, as I've stated in the previous EverDrive N8 episode as well, in the case of EverDrive and from the consumer's point of view, if they are to spend their money to play the games in authentic way possible and not willing to spend huge amount of money on the investing on the space and the collection, then I personally don't think EverDrive N8 is not a huge personal deal for their own usage, and seeming that the EverDrive itself is not like the pirated multi-carts where they are bundled with the pre-installed games or anything. I would say even for the legally wise, I don't think EverDrive N8 itself is the main issue. But with that out of the way, EverDrive N8 Pro was officially released in November 2019, and it is supposed to have a vast amount of improvement over the previous EverDrive N8. So what are the features we got? Well, let's start with the external component itself. The cartridge itself is the clear blue case edition, but on the websites such as StoneAgeGamer.com, you also get to choose a different colors for the cartridges, but for me personally, I really like the look up for the cartridge itself. You can see the attention to the detail of the hardware itself with all the components. The hardware spec wise, the cartridge once again runs through the FPGA based hardware field programmable gate array, and it's known as Cyclone 4 this time. Additionally, the hardware memory is up to 16 megabytes, so now that we can also run through the games with the bigger ROM file size, but we'll get into that very shortly. Now, if we take a look at the cartridge on the top, of course it has the micro SD card slot naturally, but it also has a switch which is actually for either menu access for during the in-game gameplay, or the Famicom disk system disk swapping function. I must say, having an access for the physical button for me, especially for the Famicom disk system disk swapping, is a very nice touch. Even though you can still access the menu system with the controller combination, in addition to the switch, you also have a micro USB port. And this is actually for the GitHub programming, so that the people who are in the homebrew scene could develop the games through the computer and through the EverDrive itself, which I think it's a very neat little function. Now that we've looked through the external part, let's take a look at the main software. Currently, my OS version is the latest version 2.06, but keep in mind the OS could be updated in the future time, but as of for now on, the OS is at the version 2.06. As most of us may already know with the functions of the flash cartridges like EverDrive, it's once again a device where it allows us to install the ROM on your own. Not gonna tell you where to get the ROMs, by the way. Put it into the SD card and insert it to the cartridge, and whatever file sort you would like to please. And there you have a fundamental function of the EverDrive itself. It's simple as it is. However, in terms of the software, there's more to it, at least for the Pro version. Now you can put at least 1024 maximum games per one file, unlike the previous EverDrive N8, where it was up to 700 maximum, and if you were to put more than that, some of the files were not being able to display on the menu. Which I think in terms of the Pro version, this is very nice considering the fact that you can put more games into files into one folder. And again, you can store any format you want. Plus, this was something I didn't even notice on the old EverDrive, but it appears to be that the main menu on the Pro version in terms of the loading time is much faster than the ones on the previous EverDrive N8. Very nice update change. Before we go on with the game compatibility even furthermore, let's talk about the in-game menu. Let's start up with the main option menu. Already from here, we have a selection for the in-game menu, which is usually accessible through the switch or in-game combination. STD is the one that brings the menu through the controller combination of your own choice. QSS is without to bring a menu with your controller combination, once again that you can do the quick save and load state. Or simply you have an option to not turn this function on at all. The combination save state and load state key can be set up and functioned with maximum 2 button combination of your own choice. Keep in mind, you cannot duplicate the same combination twice if you, let's say, already use one specific combination on save state key or vice versa. Having to put a combination setup will allow you to have a quick save and load state during the gameplay. Or if that's not an ideal case for you and it might interrupt your gameplay, then you can simply bring up the menu up to the screen with potentially bringing with the combination or by pressing the switch. What's nice is that there's at least maximum of 100 save state spots that you can save up to, which is a very nice touch. And bringing out the menu also allows you to leave the game during the gameplay without to reset the system, which I found it to be pretty convenient, I might add. Of course, you also have other options to turn on and off, such as file sorting, reset delays, swapping A and B, and Famicom disk system auto swap. Then we got an interesting feature of audio balance, which right from the get-go, you can add just any special sound channel chip that the Cyclone could emulate on the hardware. Furthermore, you have a default audio setup options from the original 1983 Famicom model, AV Famicom model, and to NES RGB 4K mod. All the essential sound channels from the Famicom disk system, Sunsoft 5V, Konami VRC7, and etc. all works perfectly fine with the system that you are customizing for, or even for the default setup, it just works perfectly well and sounds pretty well too. And here's how it sounds like through the AV Famicom at the very least. Speaking of sound channel, in addition to adding games only, the cartridge now also supports the NSF sound channel files that you can rip it out and put it into the SD card for the cartridge to run and play it. It's kind of like the audio player for the NSF file, to say the least. Additionally, you also have a real-time clock setting as well, and I found this feature to be interesting. It's mainly for tracking down the save files and the dates and the time, which is quite handy, I might add, since you can have the general sense of how long you've been playing that game. Additionally, you also have an option for the cheat codes, which in this case is Game Genie codes. Keep in mind, if you were to use a code for the specific game in mind, you first need to select the ROM file, then you have an access the cheat code for the game and enter it whatever it pleases you. The menu also have a recently played maximum of 14 games, so you can have a quick access of the games that you played very recently or the most. You can also bring the device info of the latest OS about the EverDrive, and you can even run diagnostic, but note that you might have to reset the system afterwards on a few occasions. Finally, last but not least, in terms of selecting a game, you get to look for the ROM info about the size and the mapper of the game, and hex view, which I found it to be again interesting, and also you can delete the file without need of physically doing it on the computer. So now that we've gone through the mouthful of menu functions, how about the game's compatibility? And just to get things out of the way, all the licensed games worked perfectly fine as it is for the most cases, and including some of the homebrews and pirated gaming scene. Well, it might not be 100% home run, but majority of the 9% runs very well. And once again, being that the cartridge can also support the 16 megabyte memory for the ROM, I decided to put some tests into it and ran at least 3 games that's supposed to have a bigger ROM file format. First, I ran a Korean action platformer by Zemina called Magic Kid Goo Goo, the only NES game that Zemina made, and quite a decent one I might add. Anyways, and the game that is known for the mapper 190 with 125k kilobytes, the game ran effortlessly with no glitches whatsoever. Then I tested it, Zelda The Legend of Link, a very polished hack of the first Legend of Zelda game, which the file format maximized by 1024 kilobytes. And this beautiful complex hack of Legend of Zelda worked beautifully and effortlessly once again. Finally, I also put Super Mario All-Star ROM hack, which again from the same modifier who did the Legend of Link Infidelity. And much like the Zelda one, this Mario hack also goes up by 1024k size, and on this EverDrive, it once again saw the glory and ran perfectly fine. So as you would imagine, most of 99% of the game works perfectly fine on this little device. But to be aware that not all the games are gonna be a home run, such as the pirated bootleg gaming scenes does still need some work to be done. But again, to note that it will be updated in the future OS. And of course, with the NES/Famicom cartridge-based game aside, we also have a Famicom Disk System games to run with. And I gotta say, this library's compatibility is less of a home run in comparison to the cartridge-based games. Most of the simplistic games such as Super Mario Bros. 2 and Yume Kojo Doki Doki Panic would run just fine, but a couple of other games, for instance, I've tried to run this game called Tama and Friends, and simply it got stuck on the blue screen. In fact, most of the Famicom Disk System games might suffer from this issue, and not every games are compatible at the moment. However, when the games do run, they seem to run perfectly fine, and with the FDS audio support, it runs and sounds like how it should be on the original Famicom disk system. Or at least for the most part, it mimics it pretty well. EverDrive N8 PRO is overall a polished cartridge from Ukraine once again, with its build quality and tons of amazing features. Much like the original EverDrive N8, the Pro version also shines with its many compatibility of the library of NES, Famicom, and Famicom Disk System game, at the very least of 99% of the time, and it's just an amazing little cartridge. Compatibility sake wise with the other clone console, it's mostly recommended to be run on the official Nintendo hardwares, but on the other FPGA consoles such as AVS and what I've been told even on Analog NT, it also supports the EverDrive N8 PRO to run along. By the time of this recording, the old EverDrive N8 also got an updated OS much like the Pro version. And while in terms of the cost, I would say having an old EverDrive N8 might be a better option for you. But certainly if you were to invest on the retro gaming scene in one go, or if you never owned the old EverDrive N8 version at the first place, then Pro Edition might also be a way to go. Not to mention, by the time I'm recording this, the NES version is also available as well. EverDrive N8 Pro is certainly an appealing device for not only for the old retro game enthusiasts, but also for the newcomers for the retro game market, and even for the potential homebrew developers with GitHub, and it makes your old 8-bit system newer than ever. This was Kevinhwsohn. Thanks for watching.